Yeah,
Shark attacks with Jacques Cousteau this morning is going to talk to us about the shark attacks in New Smyrna Beach.
This shark is a magnificent animal, and I've seen many of them in the world. Remember Jacques Cousteau? Remember why he quit diving? No, he was diving in the Mississippi River at one of those big spillways, and he saw a catfish that was so big. I'm not going to say what he did. It scared him so bad. He lost his mind and said, I'm out. But there's some big ones on there. Hey, Rob Browne, Brenden Martin, got a great show. Coach Matt Dean over in Memphis. John Hartwell, AD at ULM, checks in with us down in Monroe, Louisiana. And Chris Lee of the Southeastern 14. There's so much stuff happening so fast. And we're going to talk a little about Texas. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy. And Chris is going to join us here in the first part. Okay, good. It's going to be crazy watching what happens out there with Texas A&M. We might have to have a fight referee there. The Schlossnagle thing, the more you look at that, hey, don't attack the reporter. The whole thing is just weird. Olin Buchanan and I were texting yesterday from texags.com. I love that guy and looking forward to getting him back on the show. But Billy Lucci, in texags.com, they know more about what's going on with the Texas A&M Aggies. We're going to talk with Olin here soon about that, but a lot going on. So get pen and paper handy, smash the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner. And as they say down in the country, let's get her done.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Chris Lee is in here with us right now. John Hartwell's going to join us in just a second. Coach Matt Dean over in Memphis. And I was thinking that Chris was coming on at 8:30, so it's confusing because usually he comes on Tuesdays at 8. But a lot to talk about. And I think everybody, Matt, your son coached out at A&M with Jimbo Fisher for 4 years, but not in baseball. What happened Monday night, and John Hartwell's with us. Bo Carter has been on the show a lot with us, especially during the College World Series. He knows Jim Schlossnagle quite well. And so that was, it was like, are you kidding me? He's leaving for Texas. The A&M coach leaving for Texas. But Chris, I'm going to start with your take and then get Matt and then John. I know he and Chris Del Conte, the athletic director at Texas, have a prior relationship. And Trev Albert's the new AD. Ross Bjork left. He's the one who put together the Jimbo deal. That's like the guy that invented the Led Zeppelin. But
yeah,
Chris, talk about that.
Well, look, there was never a good way to do this. I don't blame Jim Schlossnagle for leaving. I think most of us, if we were friends with the AD that he had been with at Texas, and friendship is strong between those two. And so they're both great jobs. If you want to leave for Texas, fine. Now, there's never an easy way to do it, but he could have handled the press conference differently. He could have just said, hey, look, I'm the coach at Texas A&M. We just lost the national title. That's what we're talking about tonight. Would people have jumped his case for leaving the next day? Yes, they would. Did he give them layers with that statement and the way he handled that wouldn't have been there if he'd handled it right? Yes, he did. Now, I think the bigger issue is the stuff that J.B. Moss has come out and alleged. Now, if there's some truth to that, then we got real problems.
Matt, weigh in on that. Good points.
Yeah, as a coach who has coached in the NCAA tournament, not at the final game in a College World Series, mind you. They have those cool down sessions for a reason before they get to the media. I agree with Chris. I mean, listen, taking jobs and leaving schools for other schools happens all the time in our industry. But I think Chris is completely right. We talked about last night in my house. It's like, hey, right now I want to talk about my young men. I want to talk about how great of a season we had. Kudos to Tennessee. It was a great game. All the cliche stuff, and say, that's for a different day. And you really you help yourself and you help your team in that moment by doing that. And John, you're Division I AD, and I'm really kind of surprised that he handled it this way, because I've heard great things about him, and this is, to me, such a simple, easy handle. I think emotionally it overcame him, because I don't care what you say. When you lose a College World Series like that, and mind you, it's 6-1 in the eighth, and all of a sudden it's 6-5. The time runs at the plate. So I know what's going through his mind, but I just thought I was really disappointed. As great as a coach he is, and probably will be for Texas moving forward, I thought he fumbled the ball at the goal line there, guys. I really did.
Yeah. John?
Yeah, the interesting thing about this, and I think Chris was spot on, the friendship component of it between CDC, what those of us who know him pretty well know, Chris Del Conte and Sloss, you can understand that. I mean, I have guys that I talk to, that I'm not hiring today or tomorrow, that I've hired at some point, whether it's, a Neil Browne, a Blake Anderson, a Craig Smith, a Ryan Odom, any of those guys, you have relationships long beyond, when you two are at the same institution. So I understand that component of it. And part of this is today's world. The whole part about, hey, did this occur between, the end of the regular season and the SEC tournament or the regional or whenever, if it occurred prior to A&M's season being over, then, that's one thing.
Yeah. If
it was only between those two people. But now that has filtered out, this whole thing about a graveyard, and that is where it gets really, really clunky in my mind. I don't care how good of friends, you are. The other component to this, and Rob, I can't go very long in any of these Thursday segments without tying it back into NIL. But if you just look on the surface, Texas paying former coach, what they paid there and what they're going to pay for a buyout to A&M, that's $4.5 million in baseball before you even start factoring in how much they're going to increase their pool for NIL, what his salary is going to be. And I know there are beliefs that it may be somewhere near the $3 million range. So I know that the University of Texas and A&M to that extent have black gold money, if you will, oil money.
Yeah. Texas tea.
But this takes it to a whole nother level. And again, those who are arguing against, transferring as many times as you want or the NIL money involved, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. In our industry, you say, we don't want you as student athletes to do this, but we as coaches or administrators are going to do that. That's hypocrisy at its core, and that can't exist, without, allowing kind of free agency on transferring and NIL money.
Yeah. Chris, have you had a chance, or any of y'all, to look at the percentage since October 15th of 2018, when the transfer portal officially became law? The number of players, I bet it's 50% or more, who aren't ever picked up, or just out there in purgatory, wandering in the wilderness, lost, and just orphan. I call the portal kind of the orphan brigade, a reference to that regiment of Kentucky soldiers during the war between the Yankees and the Americans. It's a great book, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the numbers are, but they would be staggering. I mean, I don't really have to know what they are. And I think it's just, you look around, and Matt, John, I'm not in your profession, but I've just always been amazed. It just feels like, and I've probably used this analogy on your show before. Feels like we got an airport with a bunch of people flying planes, coaches, athletic directors, players, and they're all trying to get on the same landing strip, and there's no air traffic control. I'm just floored that we are this far into this era, and there is no there are no rules, there's no governing authority, there's no leadership. I don't understand that. I mean, I feel like if the four of us were running college athletics, and I know running college athletics is a nebulous term because, you know, there's a lot of levels, there's a lot of sports, the rules and things need to be different. But I feel like if the four of us were in major positions with the NCAA or whatever, you know, probably we'd rent a hotel room in Memphis or something for a weekend or a suite, and let's get in, bring some other people in, and hammer this out until we get something that we can all live with that doesn't drive us all crazy. And it boggles my mind that this has never happened, because I think I'm not glad for what happened between Texas and Texas A&M this week. I think it's awful, but there's a little part of me that is, because I think it puts how bad this system is and what can happen if people are left their own devices with no control over things. I just don't. Who's this good for? You tell me. Maybe the worst of the actors out there. I don't understand why we don't have a better system in place, because NIL and the portal have both been things for years now. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, Laviolette is in the transfer portal, the big outfielder for A&M. I mean, you took an A&M team that both fan bases, by the way, are to be applauded for that. That was some of the best. And I'm wondering, has anybody seen the numbers? Did we crack 3 million viewers in one or more of the games of the finals? Because if we didn't, I don't know what people were watching. Maybe the Stanley Cup finals, maybe reruns of Mama's Family, which, God, I'd rather take 1129 at the county lockup, but hard labor. But I'm curious, did we? Anybody know?
I did see a blurb last night. It didn't give numbers, but it talked about the second most viewed College World Series there's been. I think one of the ones with LSU. I don't think it was last year, but
there's 7 of them. It's kind of a good
yeah.
Or more than that.
Yeah. And this story's not over yet, guys. I mean, you talk about people going in the portal. You're going to see it, you know, the Vegas would lay the odds that there will be multiple players who are currently, or as of 2 days ago, were on Texas A&M's roster, who will be on the University of Texas roster next year. I mean, and all that's going to do is just fuel it that much more. You know, I'm sure you guys probably saw it, and, you know, love him, hate him. Some people think he's quirky, but Lane Kiffin is brilliant off the charts. If you've ever spent any time with him, he's brilliant off the charts. And he even said the other day, hey, we at Ole Miss Ole Miss football has been the beneficiary of what is going on with the transfer portal and what they've got going with the Grove Collective. But he said it's insanity, and at some point this thing is going to have a correction. And I totally agree, because like Chris said, we're a runaway train, or you know, planes coming from every direction landing at an airport, and there has not been a major crash yet, but at some point, if we don't get a hold of it, there's going to be.
Hey, trees don't grow to the sky. That's the stock market saying. If they do keep growing, they eventually fall over on the power lines and knock everybody's power out. You don't want to do that. That's why you do preventive maintenance. This is a great panel, and that's why I love this. I've been up since about 4:30 or 5, bouncing off the walls. I'm so excited about the group we have on here. So thank y'all. So whoever wants to answer that part about what John said, it's true. It's a runaway freight train. It's and it'll correct itself. But you know, the sooner we do something without structure, you got chaos.
Well, I have a question, and I guess for John and Matt, because like we could sit here and talk about the how bad it is and the how many people and all the million things we could name.
Yeah.
The question that just perplexes me is the one that I don't understand how we don't have better law and order at this point. I mean, what is getting in the way of this? I would love to hear from guys that sit in the chairs that you guys do, because it's just from the outside, it has really perplexed me.
Yeah, I'll take a shot at that. I think right now and Charlie Baker has done some very good things coming in to lead the NCAA. Obviously, he brings a career in politics, and having been the governor, and having been a student athlete, his wife was a student athlete, two of his kids were, so he understands some of the complexities of it. But at the end of the day, the decisions are ultimately made by a group of college presidents. And they, again, talking about brilliance, they're brilliant off the charts. But sometimes, if not fully updated, whether it's by their athletic director or other colleagues or people within their league, decisions are made in a vacuum that they don't realize the day-to-day consequences of that. And I think we've gotten to a situation from an NCAA perspective where the body itself and every institution, including ours, is a member of that, is so litigation adverse that any decision that's made, anything you do in today's society, no offense to the attorneys listening out there, anything you do today, you could walk across the street wrong and somebody may sue you for it. That's just the cost of doing business. But I think that has paralyzed the NCAA so much. And add to that, probably appropriate that we're on the day of the first debate, the political side of that, because I really think, as so many things in our country are, we're polarized, or we've been polarized from a Congress standpoint in terms of what different factions want out of this. And ultimately, in my mind, there's got to be, I know they've got way more important things to discuss, but college athletics, and in particular, college football, basketball, baseball are integral parts of our society. At some point, they've got to step in, but that's not happening until after Election Day now.
Yeah. Matt, what he just said, it makes total sense. Got to add to that.
Yeah, John and I have had this discussion before about the impact of college presidents when the fans see decisions made. You don't know the wizards that are behind the screen. And the reality is, every decision that I was a part of as an athletic director had to be supported and vetted by our leadership team, which at the head of that was the college president. And also, I do think, Chris, there's a little cause and effect. And what I mean by this is we see it as a little bit of a runaway train. But then when Rob mentions the ratings we get for all the final product, we're like, God, this is incredible. Now we're going to 12 football teams. Look at the College World Series we had. So everything appears healthy at the end, but to get to the end, it's a doggone mess. And I think I shared this a couple of weeks ago, but like even in college baseball, we're a Division III program. We have guys in the portal, that baseball pitchers that throw 88 to 92, that will be seen in some of these summer leagues and will move up, because one of the things that's obvious after watching a lot of World Series baseball, there's a lack of pitching, and it's been a trickle down effect. And now a lot of times our coaches at my level are making a sell like, hey, we know you're a borderline Division I product. Come for us 2 years. You're going to get reps, and we'll help you on the back end of this. I know it sounds wacky, but there's so many different avenues going on with this portal. It even affects us at Rhodes College.
Yeah.
Chris, you're a baseball junkie, and we all love it. Growing up in Memphis, we had the AA Memphis Chicks. I remember Gary Carter, the great catcher who played for the Mets for a long time. Bo Jackson, I was there for his first game. He hit a single got to first base. The place was packed. Guys would come and go during the season, up and down. We used to sit out there, the left field loonies, we called ourselves. We had Chief Nakahoma, the mascot, 25-cent beer on Friday nights, man. 25-cent beer. And Willie McGee, who went on to play for the Cardinals. I mean, we saw the guys coming and going. Sometimes guys would come down and then go back up. That's what I think Matt's talking about, especially with Division II and Division III. Charlie Condon, Matt referenced a few weeks ago, was going to come to Rhodes to play football and baseball. And God, if you've ever been to Rhodes College, it's a gorgeous campus. It's right across from the Memphis Zoo, one of the top zoos in the world, I might add, and right down the street from Alex's Tavern, the greatest, oldest Greek tavern since 1953. But I think that's what we got to think about now is, we have the AAA Redbirds in Memphis at AutoZone Park. You just go into the game. I mean, every day when my kids were growing up, Dad, can we go to the Redbirds game? Never asked who they were playing. It's just going. John, you spent 10 years in Oxford. I've been to 52 games there. No, 57 over the years, and 52 and 37 at Starkville. There's more business done in the Junction and the Grove. Chris, I think that's where we're going. We love the sports, though. Yeah, that's the thing, Chris. And you do such an outstanding job. And people need to be watching Chris, what he does on Southeastern 14. He's pounding out the content every day. That's why he's on the SEC Sidelines Sports Network. So, Chris, kind of make a case for what I just said. Right or wrong, you can agree or disagree. Free speech is still alive and well on Sidelines.
Well, what I hear you saying is that we're making college baseball the minor leagues for Major League Baseball, something along those lines. I mean, I know it's not that cut and dried, but am I close?
Well, Buddy Martin calls it high AA baseball, SEC baseball now.
Yeah. Hey, look, the reason that we started Southeastern 14 was because I felt like baseball and basketball, the league had really good products and they were being undercovered. You can get your Kentucky basketball, you can get your Alabama football, and football was kind of an afterthought when we did it because I thought there's enough people covering football. Well, yeah, predictably that's our biggest audience 3 years in. But that aside, I mean, I've seen how great the product has been for years. I used to sit in amazement at SEC baseball games 15 years ago to go, how is this not a bigger topic? Because you watch the Matt Laportas and guys like that and just go, this is tremendous. David Price, the guys that you'd see play in the majors later, and Aaron Nola. I thought the product was being slept on, and I think I've said this many times. I think the creation of the SEC network is what made it explode because it put the product in front of people more. Yeah. I mean, I think if you'd gone back and done that 10, 20 years before it was done, you would have seen popularity in these sports grow before they did. But I think that people are now seeing it for what we love it for, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. Matt and John, I'm going to play pretend hypothetical, okay? What if, I'll start with John, what if you suddenly were the AD at, say, a school like the University of Florida with 23 million plus people, an athletic program that's won 275 Southeastern Conference championships, a cruise ship full of national championships? What would be the first thing that you would do with football being where it is, and Todd Golden is building a basketball program? But is that a like, wow, where do you start? Or you're a structure guy. Don't forget, you're a CPA and a Citadel grad and a Mobilian.
No offense at all to Scott Strickland because he's a good friend, and even though we were on opposing sides when I lived in Oxford and he was in Stark Vegas, he's done a great job. It's just like being a coach and an AD.
By the way, you see these new hats?
When you sign up for it, there are a ton of armchair ADs, just like there are armchair coaches that have no idea what go into all of the decisions that are made. But I'll say this, and you guys are spot on about college baseball, especially at the highest level, and I do think it is more appealing to more kids now coming out of high school who are academically eligible to go play in the SEC or the Big 12 or the Big 10 due to 10,000 people in the stands everywhere you go. Their mode of travel is probably much better than it is in some minor, some single A, Sally leagues like that. All of those reasons. But at the end of the day, football is the engine that drives the train, whether you're at Florida, whether you're at Ohio State, whether you're at ULM, no matter where you are, because of all of despite the high TV ratings, and I understand that popularity has grown.
Yeah.
85% of those multi-million dollars, in some cases billion-dollar television contracts are driven off college football. So it doesn't matter if you're winning league championships or national championships and your Olympic sports. That's great. And actually there are some institutions who emphasize spending and dollars on those areas to be very good in that. But the engine that drives the train, whether you're in the SEC, the Sun Belt, the Mountain West, is football. So you have got to focus within your means all the resources you can to football. But again, from an AD's chair that a lot of people don't understand outside, you've got Title IX concerns. You've got all kinds of things that you've got to balance as part of that. But never forget, football is the engine that drives the train.
Yeah. Yeah. And Chris, I know you just got a couple of minutes before you got to go, and because Matt and John are going to stay on, but I love the fact that you recognized about baseball, because I remember being in college, Frank Thomas, Bo Jackson, Greg Olson. Of course, you had the Big Four, Bobby Thigpen, Jeff Brantley, Rafael Palmeiro, and Will Clark over at Mississippi State, and LSU was coming on. But I still remember on a Sunday afternoon after a 3-day party at the Sigma Newhouse, a bunch of us were sitting on the first baseline in the old metal bleachers. I mean, at an Auburn baseball game. And Bo Jackson, I saw this. He hit a grounder to shortstop, and before the guy even had the ball in his glove to crow hop it, to first, he was already 15 yards past first base. And those stories became legendary. Like, I saw Coach Bryant at Big John Grisani's in Memphis, going into that side room and looked like he'd had a cocktail or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, 8, 9, 10. Anyway, Chris, that's what I love about this is you recognize that, and you do a great job of covering football too.
Yeah, I think the product is as good as I've ever seen it. The talent is incredible. I hope that the game look, the game's not going to implode. Like, baseball is a sport from the major league levels, and it started in the 1860s, has survived so many things. It's always been poorly managed. You had the 1800s and the early 1900s were full of gambling scandals. We know the stuff we've lived through in our lifetime with work stoppages and PED scandals and whatever else you want to throw out there. The product has always been good enough that there's still, in spite of how badly it's been screwed up by the management, people still watch it. I think that's where we are with college baseball and college sports in general. But I would like to see more common sense and law and order to make it better.
Yeah. Chris, tell them how they can follow you and keep up with all your great work. And hey, no problem at all. I was just saying, I was confused this morning. You're welcome anytime on this show. And I know what you were doing. I'm in the same boat. Mine are 89 and 95. And I tell you what, I get calls. Well, where are you? I'm over in Arkansas. You pick up a bottle of cranberry juice for me? I'm like, yeah, I'll be there in an hour. I love it, though.
Yeah.
Wait till they're gone. We're really going to be missing it.
Yeah, I'm managing parents and kids with my mom, my wife out of town at a conference. That might have been an appropriate Freudian slip there. I don't know.
Does Michael Keaton and Mr. Mom come to mind, as you said?
Yeah, exactly. And anyway, if it's not written down in front of me, it's hard for me to remember. But thanks for having me on. And yeah, go to YouTube, search Southeastern 14. It'll be Southeastern 14 any day. Maybe whenever I rearrange those pennants behind me, that'll be the trigger. But in all seriousness, it's search either one of those, you're going to find us, and that's what we do: baseball, football, basketball in the SEC.
Hey, we love having you on. Thanks, and have a great day. And your parents are lucky they got a great son like you, man. Take care.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Have a great day, Chris. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, he is one of the good ones. And I got to tell y'all something, man. I want to say something about a couple of our sponsors. One of them, Coolmore Logistics and Transportation. Coolmore Truck Lines, based in Memphis with a global reach. Anything that you need to have shipped, cotton, seed, rice, bricks, steel coils, lumber, you name it. The way it works, you hit that QR code. Their office in Memphis, Robert Weaver, John, I'm just telling you, they are spot on. They have computers and flat screens everywhere. Order comes in. Let's say Matt Dean is a citrus farmer in Broward County, and he's got to ship oranges to Omaha. Bam. They get the notification, and it's posted, and within minutes, their phone blows up. They can ship anything. Robert Weaver and the crew over there, John Dicken, they are aggressive, and they are getting after it. I mean, they're young guys. I've known Weaver since he was a kid. Ain't nobody can outwork him. My son Wilson and him, very similar personalities, but great company to work with. And also the Vitamin Shop in Oxford and Olive Branch, Mississippi. Get out there. They're open. Check the QR code on the Vitamin Shop. They have people in there that actually know what they're doing. They're not going to just sell you stuff that you don't need. I buy a lot of products from the Vitamin Shop. Goo, shot blocks, prebiotics, probiotics. They've got muscle recovery, energy recovery. They know what they're doing. Oxford, Mississippi, and Olive Branch, Mississippi. And, of course, Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company. Guys, y'all ought to see this hat that Brenden got from Hewlett & Dunn. I mean, when Brenden comes on wearing that hat, he wore it on with the headsets the other day. It's don't mess with the man in black with the Hewlett & Dunn Stetson hat, I might add. But in Matei's Garage, let me say something. I've known Larry Cervetti. He has Matei's Garage. And yes, sir. Well, hold on a second here. Well, how you doing there, Tex?
What's up?
I love that hat. But Matei's Garage, since 1972, if you have a car or truck or SUV that needs to be fixed, get out to Matei's Garage. Proud of him as a sponsor. Brenden, you got the headsets on. Is that what hey, John, you've been out west a lot.
Is that
camo, what the Wyoming Cowboys announcers wear?
Camo headsets, by the way.
Oh, man. I like that. Wearing the hat. Brenden, we've been talking a lot about
This is how I talk. This is my persona right here. Yeah, go ahead.
You got to get right up on the mic like a country singer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, who's going to fill their shoes? Who wrote that song? Who sang that song? Anybody know? George Jones.
George
country.
Jones.
But let me say this, Brenden. I was on last night, your dad's show, the Buddy Martin show, and Woody Page was on there. Y'all know who Woody Page is. He's a great writer. I didn't know he was from Memphis.
Yeah.
And he told a story last night. As a 4-year-old kid, he played in the weeds in the ground that is now, that's right, Perry Mason, George Jones. Who's gonna fill there? Oh, what a great song. Hey, y'all ought to hear.
Don't quit your day job, Rob.
I'm not, don't worry. The dogs outside are howling. Oh! But anyway, he talked, Woody Page was really cool last night. He and Buddy Martin are very close friends. They worked together in Denver for a long time when Brenden lived out there. George Jones wrote that. Y'all ought to hear Jamie Johnson do it at the 80th birthday celebration for George Jones at the Grand Ole Opry. The possum just looked at him with those glasses, kind of like going, "You damn right. You damn right." The possum was so cool. But let me say this, man. Woody Page talked about growing up playing in the weeds in Memphis, which is on the site of what is now St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And he said, he told this, it's the coolest story. He said, there was this guy that wore jeans and, kind of rough looking with black greasy hair. And I told my mom about him. I said, he goes down there and he plays guitar and he sings. And she goes, Presley? She goes, oh, they're worthless. They're from Tupelo, where your dad's from. He'll never amount to anything. That was the story. And he said, I was Elvis's first fan. He would come down and play in front of me. And then we were at the house one night when I was a kid watching on TV when Ed Sullivan said, I'd like to introduce a fine young man from Memphis, Tennessee, Mr. Elvis Presley. And the rest is, history. But that was so cool to hear Woody Page talking about what's going on in college sports and everything. Unbelievable show. John and Matt, you talked about it. If you're hiring somebody, and John, you probably get these calls. I know you do, and so do you, Matt. Someone says, "Hey, I'm interviewing Brenden Martin. He played football for y'all for 4 years, majored in physics or biochemistry. What kind of kid is he? How tough is he?" That's the call that those athletes better be worried about. If they're worrying, you know what I'm saying? Jamie Johnson did an unbelievable job, though, at the Grand Ole Opry of who's going to fill their shoes. But, Matt, have you ever had that call recently about anybody?
Well, you know, it's funny you say that. We're hiring a bunch of different positions this summer, and one of our former coaches who played for me and is successful at a different institution, it kind of goes back to early in the segment when we were talking, you know, about the relationship with the Texas AD and the now Texas baseball coach and former A&M baseball coach. But relationships matter. I will tell you this, though. When you make a hire and you're the AD, you're going to exude as much patience as you can to help that person, as opposed to if you inherit a hire and things aren't going well. John has a short list for probably most of his sports right now. He's not going to give that up to us. We understand that, but you have to have a short list of people that you know, if I make a change, I'm going to go this direction. And I know certainly I did for several sports. And obviously when I had to make a basketball hire, it was probably easier for me because I have a greater network in basketball, coaching basketball. But like, you know, you referenced Florida earlier, Rob, and talking about all the championships and everything that goes down. When you hire Billy Napier, you're going to give a lot more rope in that situation. You look at the brutality of Florida's schedule this year, and we haven't really talked about wins over under this year for SEC teams yet, at least in this segment. You know, it's going to be really interesting if it doesn't go their way, the patience level of the AD on the length of sticking with a certain head coach, because, you know, first time ever, we're going to have 12 playoff teams. We're going to have, I'm guessing, minimum 3 SEC teams in that playoff format. That's just my initial thoughts. I don't know how it's going to play out, but everybody wants to be a part of that conversation. And if you're not, like I saw there was a list of the top 6 sleeper CFP playoff teams this year. And I saw A&M at the top of the list. And I'm thinking, I mean, I don't know how we do that. I mean, first year, well, Elko's been at Duke. He's familiar with A&M because he's the defensive coordinator of that. But no one's even talking about A&M in the top 3 in the SEC, but yet they could be in the college football playoff. It's crazy what this year is going to happen, and honestly, it's going to lead to more coaches getting removed from their jobs.
Yeah, it is. Let me. I got something I got to play for Perry Mason.
This is when I say copyright.
Wait a minute,
Rob.
Copyright.
Rob.
Holy
Copyright. Stop. Put on your kazoo. Use your kazoo, Rob.
Dun, 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 dun,
Use your voices. Use your inside voice, Rob.
I'm in the interest of all dogs in the hearing. I won't do it. John, what Matt just said. Also, we had this discussion with Tyler Siskey, who was at Ole Miss with Hugh Freeze in his first year. He was on our show Friday. Met him at the Touchdown Club June 10th in Memphis. He filled in for Cole Kubelik. Cole had to do the show with Roman Harper when they announced the SEC schedule, these goofy times, these flex times and whatever. Let me say that was a really cool segment. Doug Dean, Frank Duffy, and I, and Brenden was on with us. And Tyler talked about with the House settlement, the proposed settlement. He said, you're going to have a lot of patient ADs going forward. Now, hear me out. He goes, because if you're having to pay out 20 or 30 million, you're going to be a lot more patient. And he went on and he talked about how he'd done his dissertation as a GA about the shrinking window of time for new coaches in this microwave society that we live in. You know, there's an old saying about the stock market. If you look at the newspaper every day or look at the screen at your stocks and you panic, you're like a vegetable farmer who has tomatoes and eggplant and squash in the backyard garden. If you go out and pull them up by the roots every day to check their progress, they ain't going to grow. Got to be patient. But he said, we would have never heard of Frank Beamer. And I was in Roanoke, Virginia. My brother-in-law played for Virginia Tech. I got 2 nieces and a nephew that graduated from Tech. Hokies. I mean, you talk about a beautiful campus. It's Rhodes College on Smith Mountain. It's gorgeous. But we'd have never heard. And they also said, he said, hey, Nick Saban at Michigan State, they'd have fired him. Frank Duffy said, we'd have never had him at LSU. It would have been weird. John, if a dog will bite, he'll do it when he's a pup. Talk about
Hey,
you just made a great hire in football.
I'd say
by the
this,
way.
and Tyler was just cutting his teeth in the business when I was at Ole Miss, and you could tell he was really good because I think Nick Saban is a pretty good identifier of talent.
Yeah,
and Nick hired Tyler early in his career. But I'd also say this. I mean, I don't disagree with what he said about 20 to 22 million right off the bat, and that number is going to grow from Power 4 schools going to I won't call it pay for play, but being siphoned, if you will, to the student athletes. But I'll say this, one thing that's not going to change, and I'll go back to, we hadn't made this reference the last 3 or 4 weeks, so I'm sure you'll tee this one up good, Rob. We'll go back to your foghorn leghorn.
Yes, sir.
Donors who invest are not patient.
Right.
The vast majority of those. And I'll take it even a step further to my earlier comments about football being the engine that drives the train. You talk about the life expectancy of a football coach at an institution. If you swing and miss as an athletic director multiple times, and I'll classify this, I mean, if it's several sports, you could have a problem, but especially in football, men's and women's basketball, and baseball, if you swing and miss hiring coaches, you may be given grace for 1, in some cases 2 in a particular sport. But if it gets more frequent than that, you better put a pin to your resume, because those donors are going to lean on university administration in some cases. In some cases, they may take it into their own hands. And as an athletic director, you may be looking for another job. So I think that's an aspect, and we see it play out over and over again, that a lot of people don't really consider.
Yeah, Matt, identifying a coach, you got to go out there, and I think you can tell a lot by what the players for that coach say. People can have their opinions about Tony Vitello, but his players love him. We had John Wilkerson on with Vince Ferrara yesterday. They are the voice, the baseball voice of Tennessee baseball. And say what you want, Tony's an alpha male. We need more of that. We need more badass male culture. Bring it back. Weakness invites aggression. Vitello's players love him. Not all of them can hack it. But, Matt, I've seen you interact with your coaches. Coach Duncan, your football coach, different coaches. You learn from Herb Hildigan. And you learn from great ones. Like John, you're very smart. You take a lot of notes. And that's why your son Tyler, who's 27 on the staff with Dan Lanning at Oregon, is going to keep rising. And he's very fortunate. He's also seen working for Jimbo Fisher for 4 years. And I think A&M, Ross Bjork got on out of town. Alan Green, I don't know if he'll ever get a job as an AD for hiring Brian Harsin. That's like the guy that released mosquitoes into America. I'd like to find that guy. But you got to get it right. John's right. You got to get it right. But, what do you have, 17 sports at Rhodes?
Last year we sponsored 23.
Wow. That's more than that's more than Auburn has. That's 21. But what do you have? What's the most unusual sport that y'all have?
Well, we started it. I was the first ever coach, probably field hockey. You're playing field hockey in Memphis, Tennessee. It's a northeastern Midwest sport. John's kind of left there. He's right.
I love it.
Hey, but here's an interesting thing. there's a lot to unpack with what you just asked, Rob. I'm kind of like,
I know.
It's interesting.
It's the Baileys. Top of the morning to you.
But John's right. I'm talking about exuding patience, but the donor has no patience.
Yeah.
Totally true. But like when you look at hiring and you look at like you mentioned Coach Duncan, I believe in an athletic department, if you have football, and most departments do, I believe it's a trickle down effect. If football's not healthy, I think it affects a lot of other things. First of all, from a revenue standpoint, no matter where you are, it's beneficial to everyone if people are in the seats. Okay, especially in your largest arena, stadium, whatever you want to call it, and that's what football does when healthy. For us, my last year as AD, right after COVID in 21, our football was coming off a 1-9 season and 0-4 in a shortened football season in COVID. So we had lost 13 out of 14 football games. We were the lowest I've seen in 30 plus years at the college. And I was very fortunate to hire Coach Rich Duncan from Berry College. They had won 5 conference championships in a row as an offensive coordinator, but he's also a former head coach that had taken the team to the NCAA playoffs. So me personally, I know we talk about recycled head coaches all the time, but I got to tell you, when someone has been a head coach, as an athletic director, as someone who's getting ready to make a big hire for the department, as someone that needs to have football healthy, I like the fact in his resume, yes, he was a head coach, had success at the end of his first job as a head coach. It tailed off, researched his career in a different spot, became a successful coordinator. I like that. I like the fact that he was a former head coach. I don't care what you say. When you're making a new hire, and it's very important as a young AD, if you're hiring someone that's never been a head coach, you don't always know what you're getting. And I think that's really important in the thought process. When I was in that chair for 3 years, now John's been in that chair a lot longer than I have. I've coached the majority of my career. And as a coach, I will tell you the thing that coaches need is players. To get players, you have to be a dynamic recruiter, no matter where you are. And these days, you have to be more creative out of the box. I mentioned earlier, we're having coaches say, hey, you have Division I dreams, come here for 2 years and get some video evidence of that, and we'll help you to the next level. It's almost like a back end of JUCO thought, to be honest with you. So, you have to know what you want, but I always wanted someone who had prior head coaching experience.
Let me ask you this based off of that, and I'm going to ask it to John. And John, you can answer with, because you all just said the one thing that, I guess in media, we do the same thing in technology, right? So it's like we're trying to find out how to do it cheaper, faster, better, how to carve it out. Technology is affecting everything we do. AI is affecting everything we do. If you want to be innovative, like I'll build a, production studio network out of your office, you've got to use what's available. When you see these coaching staffs, a la Billy Napier and the, many thousands of analytics and smart people that are crunching numbers and doing things, do you go look for a Mike McDaniel type of coach from the Dolphins, who's a little more forward thinking, a lot more in academia, obviously with his background, I believe it's Yale. And do you start leveraging AI? As I've said at the end of the Super Bowl this year, you missed a very important commercial where the NFL announced that with a commercial that NFL AI has tracked every single pass play that's ever happened in the NFL and then put it into an AI software. And they basically, came out, were promoting it, which is, to those who know, you're basically predictive software that's learning behavior software that's going to be able to eventually start predicting outcomes and things of that nature. I'm just saying that is what AI does for the sport, because it crunches mass data, numbers, and prediction. With you having analytics and people who are doing that already, and you are a smaller school trying to leverage what you have and be innovative, Do you start looking at those type of Mike McDaniel type forward-thinking coaches that will come and bring that to your schools?
That's John answered. I know you've got to go in just a minute, but and I've got the numbers. I've got the official numbers. Vince Ferrara just sent these on the Men's College World Series. They're going to blow your mind. I owe a lot of steamer packs. I'll just say that. John, answer that question if you can.
Yeah, Brenden, I think you're spot on with that. And it's not only with the analytics, but I think it's also, you go back and our coaching staff, which is, 6 months in, still on their honeymoon, haven't lost a game yet. But one of the things that's a byproduct of the transfer portal is, and this goes back to instant gratification and needing to win immediately. There are a lot of schools out there, including many of the Power 5, Power 4 schools, who are investing more time and resources in researching other college student athletes right now than they are high school and junior college kids. Because again, you can have a 3-star commitment out of high school who has never played an FBS down. So there's some uncertainty there. How are they going to adjust to the game? Just like you do from college to pro football. If you have someone who is proven at the FBS level, it's less of a gamble. So, you've got these staffs now where they may divide it between 20 to 22 analysts, quality control, whatever you want to call them. And each one of them has 5 FBS schools that they're responsible for watching every week of film. So from our standpoint, our coaching staff says, hey, we're going to concentrate on JUCOs and high school kids that may not be 5-star kids, and then we'll work in the portal where we can. So it is changing. But the other thing with that, and rosters turning over on an annual basis, if not more often, I'll go back to the Phil Jackson days in the NBA. In order to get a totally brand new roster every year to mesh and come together for a common goal, you better have a psychologist as much as you've got a head coach to be able to figure out that many personalities, mold them together, and get them working for a common goal.
Yeah, I agree. Let me throw these numbers real quick, John, before you go. This is sent by Vince Ferrara, the sports animal up in Knoxville. Game 1, Texas A&M versus Tennessee, 2.26 million viewers. Game 2, Sunday afternoon, 2.92 million viewers. Game 3, Monday night of an evening, as they say, Roy D. Mercer, 3.34 million. I knew it. I predicted we would crash 3 million in at least one or more of the games. And whoever I made that bet with on this show, a steamer pack of crystals is yours. So we'll talk about that. But that's what tells me we're just scratching the surface with baseball. But I think it trickles down, and more schools. Baseball's not as expensive as football, obviously, or basketball.
Yeah. Well,
and,
what's the first game Dion did? Or what? 13 million?
Yeah. And what about the
in there?
Caitlin Clark games?
That was like first game of the season.
Yeah. What about the Caitlin Clark games and in the tournament?
I feel like Dion right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But your hat is real and authentic, and you are real.
Well, I got my Gucci outside, so it's good.
Yeah. Well, but you're wearing you know what? Hey, looks like Buddy took a lot of the pictures off the wall back there.
Oh yeah, he's slowly dismantling his studio. It's fine. He can get his shit out of here. I don't want it in here anyway.
Well, we're gonna have to rebuild that
now,
studio,
buddy.
Brenden.
Yeah.
Brenden,
I'll build it. I'm gonna build it. I'm gonna put like spray paint all over it. It says
graffiti.
Yeah, get out.
Hey, John, I know you're. I want you to stay, but how do people follow you, keep up with you, and then we're going to come back for a couple of closing comments. But
yeah, because I want to hear what Matt Dean has to say.
Yeah.
Follow everything ULM Warhawk athletics wise on ulmwarhawks.com. Got a big push on season tickets right now. Got the opener coming Thursday night, August 29th, 2 months away, basically, against Jackson State. Speaking of Dion, his former school. John_Hartwell on Twitter. And guys, as always, and enjoy being with you guys. Brenden, the hat is you. There's no doubt about that.
I am the Phil Jackson of this show.
Yeah,
he kind of looks like him.
Hey, in between Rob's copywriting and us needing to get a bleep for you every once in a while, talking about your dad's stuff.
That's right. That's right.
We've all got our vices, and we all accept them. So,
that's right. You got to accept us. That's right.
Yeah.
Take care and have a great day, guys.
Thank you, John. Go Hawks. I love having John on here. You talked about adding a lot to it, and so does Matt, and as Chris did too. Matt,
I just wanted to
follow up on what we just talked about.
Yeah, I was just wanting to hear Matt, like, because as a coach perspective, now you got to save money, you got a budget, you need to compete. It's money ball, right? Like, what do you do right now? Like, but because you have tools that you can leverage that are going to save you money. Like, I use them every day. Like, do you start looking at that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think you have to, Brenden. And you brought up Mike McDaniel, who honestly is one of my favorite recent hires in the NFL.
Me too. Me too.
What he's done in a short period of time there, I wasn't sure it was going to work, but it looks like he's won the locker room. And that's something you can't formulate in AI, right? Analytics is does that person have the ability, especially in the pro level, to control and command that locker room? And from all accounts, I think the guys enjoy playing for him.
Yeah.
And honestly,
have you watched his press conferences? Like,
they're amazing.
They're amazing. They are amazing. The best press. It's literally and I've been to plenty of, and like yourself, we've been to a few press conferences in our days on both sides. They're the best. I literally just looked them up on Monday just to watch them, just because they cut them up, and I just watched the whole thing because half of them are hilarious and the other half are genius. It's just really it's entertaining, but to me it's the new face of coaching because like you said, he's got the player, he's got the locker room.
Don't you think, Brenden? I'm just guessing the ownership group that must have come out when they interviewed him in person. They must have said, "This is just an amazing man. I know we're taking a chance. He's never been a head coach, but he's been the work he did with Shanahan in San Francisco was incredible, and the roster now down there is incredible. I think they take a step. I think they win the East this year. Whether or not, I think the AFC is so loaded. I know we're talking pro football now, but I think Miami's one of my sleeper picks to maybe get the Super Bowl.
I agree.
I just always worry, the Fangio experiment didn't work out. He's old school. I do think maybe now their defense is a little happier in that room in terms of probably a coordinator match fit better for McDaniel as head coach.
Well, he does that. He praises so big, right? When things go well, but he also doesn't make bones about calling out an individual that just didn't bring it that day, and then he talks so directly to the media. It answers completely transparent. And
Brenden, one of the things I love about him, if he feels like his play call or he was part of the problem, he's going to let you know. He's got accountability, right?
Yeah.
And I think you can call out players more when you're a very accountable head coach, and you're willing to say, "Hey, look, I made a bad call on 3rd and 5. But you know what? I don't need you fumbling the ball on 1st and 10. Well, whatever it may be, I think he's got the secret sauce.
It's like being a good parent, right? It's like I can tell you you're wrong, but I can't if I don't explain why I'm telling you you're wrong. You're just going to keep making that mistake. It's one thing to scream at a player, "You're doing it wrong," and then not explain the why. I think he never does the screaming. He may scream, but he screams with intelligence, and then he comes back and he explains it to them in a way that they don't feel like they're dumb. He's not condescending.
Yeah. I'm going to give you an interesting comp. You never thought I was going to say this name. So one of the things, being a coach for years in Memphis, Tennessee, teams would come to our gym, Brenden, in practice. So we used to have, back in the Conference USA days, Cincinnati and Bob Huggins would come into our gym.
Huggy Bear.
This is where Hugs, I think, was great, and no one really knows this about Hugs unless you watch some of his practices. If you were someone that's like a superstar and maybe a little fragility in terms of your personality, if you screwed up, he would go and maybe whisper in your ear. True story. But if you're one of those guys that's the first year and you're not playing that many minutes and you screw up, I mean, you couldn't amplify the gym more. I'm just telling you. So it was knowing how to handle your stars and knowing how to handle your, mid-level, major, whatever you want to call it from a personnel standpoint. Yeah. And I think McDaniel in the press conference does that so well. He is so transparent and he's so accountable.
Did you know the story of his watch? And I know we got to go, but do you know the watch story, the expensive watch he bought? Like at the beginning of the season? I don't know what kind of, I'm not a watch guy, a jewelry guy, but he bought some like rare, expensive watch. Like first thing, basically, and it was like the price of like his first, like the entire paycheck or something for that year or something. But he walked in, he didn't want to buy the watch, but he bought the watch because basically he was, those stories, he's betting on his team, he's betting on himself that they were going to be champions. And he walked into, I think, the very first player meeting, and he holds the watch up, and he basically said this might have been the smartest or the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. He's like, but I'm betting on this. And so he relates to those players on that level, on that financial level. He's like, basically, I'm laying, here it is. I'm in Vegas. I'm all in. I'm all in on you all. If you're all in on me, I'm basically I'm going to get nothing from this entire deal. We're all going to go get rich. Who's in with me? I mean, God, that's genius. That's genius.
Well, you like people that are optimists. You like 85 and 90-year-olds to buy puppies. Okay. That says a lot. Yeah. And I think, again, if you are one of the coolest stories I ever did, I spent 5 days out at Fort Benning with Ranger School. I did a series called Quest for the Black and Gold. Guys, going through Ranger School. And one of the things I quickly learned, and my dad told me this, he was a first lieutenant when he got out at Camp Stewart, actually Fort Lee in Virginia when he got out, quit sending people to Korea, and he said, well, I'm out. Well, he was too young. But one of the things I remember, if you didn't have your canteen full of water, you got 3 of those strikes, you could be in day 58 or now day 62 of Ranger School. 3 strikes, you could be 1 day away. You're recycled. You got to do it all over again. 3 hours of sleep a day, 1 meal a day. It's brutal. 4 phases. They rarely ever raised their voices or yelled at the Rangers. They said, if we did that like they show on TV, remember, that's condensed into an hour and 47-minute movie. They would tune us out so quickly. And I think about great coaches that we have on this show. Matt, you're one of them. John, you know this. You save it for special occasions. Special occasions, and you really don't need to do it that much. Just think about it. How do you respond to a boss? I had a boss one time that came in screaming and hollering, put dog food on our boss's desk and said, this is to remind you to be loyal to me like a dog. Had us doing push-ups on the trading floor. I'll never forget that. I did more than him, and he didn't like it. He said, get up. I said, no. He said, why? Because he'll never do more push-ups than me. But no one likes to go through that. I think you got to be, as a coach. I heard Jimmy Johnson talking about it one time. Jimmy Johnson said, you got to know every player on your roster, and you got to know what drives them. Some are motivated by things that others are not. A lack of playing time, some of them don't care. They'll just sit over there and pout. Chad Johnson, what a cancer in the locker room. I heard a guy talking about when he was a rookie. David Pollock said this. He went over to his apartment or house when he was a rookie for some party, and he looked in there. There was like an 8 by 8 foot portrait of Chad Johnson in there. I think about people like my dad, who's won every award you can win in architecture in the AA. The awards are over in the corner under a stack of newspapers, or you don't even know they're there. I mean, that's the people that I respect. And I think about this, like, that was so cool last night, guys. Getting to be on there with Woody Page, just to meet him. I mean, I don't know him, but Buddy and him, and then Tony Barnhart came on there, and I watched it and I said, I don't really want to say anything other than, I do think writers should be in the Hall of Fame, the Sports Hall of Fame, in your case, because how would we know about the athletes without the great writers telling us about them? And I think the more we see what's going on in sports and in the world right now, I was texting Olin Buchanan, my friend with TexAgs.com yesterday. Love that guy. And he and Billy Lucci and all them, they're right in the center of all the stuff with Schlossnagel and one of the young reporters who asked a question. Time will heal this thing. I know it will. But A&M, it sucks for them. And I just think you got to know when to really drive and push it hard. Matt, you know this. You're a big guy, 6'3", 198, all muscle, lean and mean. You save your moments though, because if you're constantly screaming at, I learned that raising 3 kids. Yeah. That tune you out so fast.
It's just knowing your sport, knowing your role, and knowing what it is, and I think that's what why we see the look, Urban Meyer, Nick Saban, even Steve Spurrier, failures in the NFL. Right, those guys are far. Those guys want to control every aspect of the game, and that's fine. And that worked at that time in that environment for college football. Don't you agree, Matt? Now what we used to bust on, I mean, God, remember we used to sit there and be like, Lane Kiffin is just going to be this punk young kid that's going to come in. He doesn't know anything about this. Now we sit about talking about how Lane Kiffin's a genius because he speaks that language. Deion's getting all this run because apparently, initially he could speak the language of the athlete. He could relate to the athlete. Now, with the change in the NIL, with all the transfer portal stuff, and having to change that, we're getting more to the NFL model because you have to cater to the athlete now because the athlete's getting paid. Now, I mean, we have literally 2 steps away from just creating just the minor league NFL because that's what sort of works, in this model with all the things that come along with that, from salary caps to franchise tags to all these kind of stuff. And so what my point with Matt and with you, Rob, is that you're going to get these Mike McDaniels that are going to come down and be these coaches in college. And I think that's why Lane Kiffin and all these guys are hailed to be sort of genius because we're not going to see all this other sort of coaching, Matt.
It's interesting. I had a family friend, Brenden, work for Lane Kiffin. And I think one of the things that maybe that early on in his career, he was fired by, I think, famously on the tarmac at USC and some of these things that went through in his career. And now he's so much more likable. And I just get the impression that kids love playing for him. And I know it may be a different comp, but in a weird way, he's somewhat like the college Mike McDaniel because he's a great play caller. He's very transparent. He even trolls people to the best degree in terms on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And college kids like that. And he was one of the first guys that figured out the portal. He just sat back. He wasn't rushing it. He got guys late in the system. He waited for guys to move from school to school. And I know it's early, but I think Ole Miss has a top 5 team. I know we don't talk about Ole Miss, but they are interesting guys.
We talk a lot about them. Yeah.
I know, but I just think, gosh, they could be the sleeper in the SEC that even host a first round playoff game. It's going to be great.
I don't feel like.
Let me say this.
Well, I mean, we always talk Georgia, Texas. I know that sleeper's not the right word, Brenden, but we just haven't had them in the conversation. Yeah. I think a lot of times at this early. That's all.
Yeah. Well, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin is either going to this is either his moment. This is his moment. This is what he's like. He's got a chance to go and go big, big deal. Problem is now there's a lot of pressure with that moment, right? Like I was telling Rob the other day, it's like watching Rocky 3 when Rocky was a little too pumped up before he fought that first fight, right? And I felt like spring game was like that maybe for them. I hope he's taking this seriously. I know he is, but this is his moment, and I'm rooting for him in a lot of ways. I'm a Gator, but I mean I'm a football fan. I root for Lane Kiffin. I always have.
I have too, and for the record, I have never thought he was not good. I've always thought this. I don't know him. I know people that are around him. He will rip you a new one. That kid last year that tried to sue him, that didn't answer emails and stuff for a month. You heard that conversation. He said, "Don't be a." He is tough. He grew up with Monty Kiffin, man. His dad. He has grown up with football. I think Lane Kiffin is tough. I think he's kind of introverted in a way, but
he's cool tough.
He's cool tough.
He's cool tough. He's cool tough. Yeah. You don't want to be like the uncool kid. Because he might rip you, but he's going to rip you, and all the other kids are going to rip you too because they all want to be cool like him.
But everybody wanted to rip him for the 1 year at Tennessee, and I understand he left. That wasn't good. But the guy, I've always thought he was a hell of a coach. And the other thing that I see that Tony Vitello talked about it. He goes, these kids are tough these days. There's a false narrative that you can't coach kids hard and kids today are soft. Not my 3 and not Mallory, my 4th, and they're not soft at all. Maybe it's because of me. I know it is. And they're damn right it is. And their grandparents and the people they're around. You know what? You will get out of life what you accept. Matt, you are a guy that I've watched you with Cleanthes, your baseball coach. I've watched you interact with these people. Everyone wants to be at Matt's table. If you go to the cafeteria at Rhodes College,
usually there's a lot of food at Matt's table, so that's part of it. Right?
He's cool tough.
But you
Matt's
are
cool tough.
You are, but you're from Davenport. You know, you've got it. I'd love to play for you if I was an athlete because you're smart. And there's a way to also rip somebody up. Like Nick Saban, people say, Nick Saban, 6'5", 330-pound lineman, were terrified of him. Well, remember what Nick Saban said? I think what they're terrified of, 2 conversations that you have when the NFL people call you about a player. And that conversation is Matt is a great player. He's at work early every morning. He motivates his teammates. He holds everybody accountable. He does this, he does that, and he goes to mass almost every day at the Saban Catholic Student Center. And then there's the other conversation. Matt's good, he's tough, but he doesn't care about his schoolwork, and he's kind of lazy, and he doesn't support his teammates when they're struggling. You don't want to have that but conversation. That's what scares student athletes. That's what's going to correct this is the NFL, because Nick Saban, when he comes on ESPN Game Day, and I don't know what's going to happen with Pat McAfee. I just know this much. You hear this a lot. When guys sell to ESPN, ESPN takes over and you become who you're not. The SEC network, they don't bother them. You look at Cole Kubelik, you look at Roman Harper, Chris Doering, those guys, I think they're telling it like it is. They're doing it. But on the networks, not so much. And I just think that as we go forward, when Nick Saban is on game day and he's saying, hey, I'm talking to guys in the NFL and they're kind of hinting to me and saying straight up, a lot of these kids coming out of college now, they're not developed properly. That's going to keep more guys staying in college longer, and that's what's going to ultimately slow down transfer mania. I really believe that's what's going to happen because Nick Saban ain't going anywhere. He's only 72. But I think we need to be paying attention to the comments that are coming from him and other people because bouncing around and not staying anywhere very long, at least let the paint dry.
Well, I'll say this, and I want to.
I know we got to wrap up, but
well, listen. I'll quickly. I talk fast from the Midwest, but growing up in the state of Iowa, okay. Yeah. I researched this last night because I wasn't sure. I watched a special this week on the Browne brothers, who were 2 great wrestlers for Dan Gable. Iowa wrestling won 24 national championships. Let that sink in. Most of those were Dan Gable. Started back, I think his first was in 1975, right? There's a statue in front of Carver Hawkeye Arena of Dan Gable, one of the toughest SOBs I've ever been. Well, I've been around, but watched. And as a middle school PE student, we had to take in the state of Iowa a segment on wrestling. That was required because it was our, back in the day, it was our deal. Now, moving forward, what I've learned, and let me clarify my Kiffin comments. I think he's brilliant, but you got to admit, after Al Davis sent him packing 1 year in Tennessee and fired at the tarmac, the great commonality that saved him was that time with Nick Saban. People then said, this guy can't coach. He always has been brilliant, but Nick has brought it out in a lot of guys. Look at what Sarkisian did, resurging his career after So I think when I said sleeper, it's not a sleeper on this show. What I meant is from a national perspective.
I know.
We don't always talk about Ole Miss football, but I'm telling you, they are a serious, serious candidate this year to compete for a national championship. And that's what makes this year so unreal. The first year of 12 teams, guys, and you get in that playoff. I was talking to my son who flew in from Oregon last night. Those top 4 seeds are going to have a bye, and that's huge. If you can get a top 4 seed, that means you don't have to play that extra game, and all the final 8 are going to the bowl games and the Year 6 bowl games anyway. So I think it's really exciting format. And the toughness. I think kids want to be coached right now.
They do.
That hasn't changed. If you play a sport, Brenden, I think you referenced soccer. I think maybe some of your kids play soccer. I could be wrong. But
yes.
You know how tough it is to run up and down that doggone field? I mean, I think there's a stat.
In the Florida heat, and train in the summer, it's insane.
I think you sprint a total of maybe 6 to 7 miles maybe in a soccer game, okay? And you can't do that. Rob, I know you love to swim, and swimmers are maniacs because they get in the pool so early in the morning and what they do to prepare. So the college athlete, let's make no mistake about it, they're tougher than they've ever been.
Ever.
And we're always going to have someone that's very talented that's going to get led astray by a conversation of, man, you can get more money there. It's time to go.
Well, exactly.
An uncle, a cousin, a mom, whatever, you know.
Right. And mark my words, Matt, like, because we're seeing this trickle down now to the high school athletics now with the money.
Yeah.
Now we're going to see the product all the way down. These little, you watch, it'll be little splinters. A high school football is already on TV. All this stuff already has connections. It's already there. Now we're gonna inject big time high school football with mass amounts of money and pay these players. And now watch what now we're going to see the shift of what was high school is going to be middle school. So all of this pressure is going to shift. And we're already seeing it in soccer this year. They're like, oh, we're, hey, your daughter's moving up to the 12-year-old league next year. We're putting them on the big field next year. Yeah. Next year, we're going to just do the header age and all that stuff. Next year, hey, we've decided to go up. More concussions come from soccer players, by the way, than football players every year.
Absolutely.
Every year. Yeah. And so it's a major problem. So and that's an emerging sport. So I mean, hugely emerging sport. So I'm just saying, I'm not trying to have a soccer conversation. I'm just saying that we're seeing this trickle down, sort of mini trickle down economics now that are going to go and shift down. And now we're going to see all this is going to change. So the training is going to change. So we're going to be pushing athletes. It's like evolution, right? It's like we're going to be evolving this athlete earlier and faster. And we're going to see another level of player.
Let me back up why I agree with Matt. And I say this all the time. The kids today are craving, they are starving hard, tough coaching.
Yeah. We're going to dangle the carrot early. So they're going to take the hard coaching.
Hey, I'll tell you right now, why are the numbers down in recruiting for the Marine Corps and the Army? I'll tell you why. They don't want to be in that soft, woke bullshit. Okay? They don't want to be part of that. They want a tough, hard ass. They know it will prepare them for life. And you think about a guy like Hayden Fry, Kirk Ferentz. I mean, 43 years. I've had 2 coaches at Iowa. Those guys, I'm going to tell you one thing. Play Iowa in Iowa City in November at Niall Kinnick Stadium. I mean, that's a true measure. Not a bowl game in January. But bottom line is this. Kids today are starving. They're craving. Raise the damn bar. Quit lowering it. As Butch Thompson, Auburn's baseball coach, famously says on this show, I love it. He goes, people don't fail in life because they aim too high and miss. They fail because they aim too low and connect and think that's okay. Aim high. It's like the Air Force motto. But I love this conversation.
We're going to be having high school athletes making more than the high school coaches. That's going to be a problem.
Well, and trust me, in Richardson, Texas, 10 years ago, built a $63 million stadium. We've been here in Texas. Y'all have seen Friday Night Lights. Okay, let me say this. Tomorrow, we got Doug Dean, Frank Duffy, Dave Tompkins. We'll have Reggie Torber, former Auburn football player, played with Eli Manning for the Giants in the Super Bowl, Baton Rouge, Louisiana native. going to be on the show with us. Also, hopefully, Jacques Doucet. I saw him on Feinbaum yesterday from WAFB Channel 9 in Baton Rouge. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Hats off to the farmers like the great Perry Mason, who never lost a case. God bless America. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thank you for watching. That's it. That's the Nightly News with Matt.
Sorry, folks. Park's closed. The moose out front should have told you.
The moose should have told you. We're crazy.
Yeah, see ya.
All right. Thanks, Ted.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am Ari Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
So important to shop local and to buy American. For 60 years, Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company has been on the historic Collierville Square, and we strive to sell made in the USA products when available. With over 7,000 pairs of Western boots and work boots in stock for men and women, come and see our huge selection of clothing, jeans, and accessories from top brands made in the USA. Please support local business and come shop with us at Hewlett &